Cards Live, here we come. This show about to go, Jeremy Lee, get it done. This hobby is a lifestyle, bro.
Y'all know.
This hobby is a lifestyle, bro. Let's go. Best guests in the industry, you gon' see it tonight. We gon' keep it with this energy. It's Sports Cards Live. Y'all know it's a lifestyle. Y'all know that we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live and After Hours with your host, Jeremy Lee.
Well, that's the first time y'all have heard that, so maybe the second time I've heard it. Little new jingle we have from my friend Sean from Victory Investment sent that to me a little while ago, and thought we'd give it a try. There we go. All right, let's get into it. Let's bring out our guest for After Hours on this July 2nd, 2022, Mitch Gropman and his father, Al Gropman. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. How are you guys doing tonight? Mitch, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having. I'm excited to finally be on the show. Been watching the last few episodes and really enjoyed what you're doing here.
Thank you. Thanks. Good to have you. Al, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited for tonight's episode.
Awesome. And I can hear you really well. That is great. That is good. All right. Yes. I want to just talk a bit about the episode we just did with Les. Yeah. You know, if you guys were watching, any takeaways you had, but The Dream says the new intro music is sick. Yes, and thank you, Skeppy. Thank you, The Dream. Jake Dahl, good to have you here. Yeah, so guys, were you able to watch that last episode with Les Edwards?
Yeah, I caught most of it. I obviously Les's collection is unbelievable. It's one of my favorite collections just to look at and appreciate. I think we do have, obviously my collection's very different, but we have very similar taste in what we like in sports cards, and particularly with on-card patch autographs as being supreme over all other types of cards.
Supreme over all other types of cards. And that's a fair comment. I mean, especially if that's what you love. Al, did you get a chance to watch that last episode?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway was he was insane to send that much money to China. And
right.
I'm with you. I would have flown there myself to get the card in person.
I would have flown there and just waited in the airport for the next flight home. If it was the next day, I might have left the airport to do some sightseeing. But yes, I definitely would have done that as well. So you guys are father-son and you're both in the hobby, but it's kind of funny because Mitch, you're a modern current collector, you know, you're a young guy, and your dad, and you also have a pretty good presence on Instagram and Twitter. I follow you on both. I see you posting a lot on both. You're a real active hobbyist. And then as I just learned the other day, your dad is like a hobby veteran. Like he's been involved in this hobby since the 80s, Al, I believe, and really involved as a distributor. I believe you were, in the 90s, you were one of the biggest distributors of sports cards in the U.S. You were one of 7 Topps master distributors. I mean, listen, we're going to get into, Mitch, your cards and collection, but Al, just tell us a little bit about, how you got into that business back in the day.
How I got into the business was I was actually on my way to Las Vegas, and I had a large container of coins in a jar, and I was dragging them to the bank to cash them in to have some gambling money. And as I walked by this office, it said Video Fun Enterprises. They were distributing Nintendo. Nintendo 8-bit had just come into the marketplace. They were going to Toys R Us, buying the games for full price, and then reselling them to video game stores, and Blockbuster Video, etc. And I decided I would talk to the owner because I was into the card market. And I said, have you ever sold baseball cards? And he said, baseball cards? My customers want baseball cards to sell as well. So I went to Vegas that weekend, and when I got back, we started sports line division of Video Fun Enterprises, where we were calling on primarily rental stores of rented out video games and movies like Blockbuster, and the smaller stores as well, and started calling them and selling them boxes of cards. We started with Pro Set and Skybox and Topps, Upper Deck, etc. And it just grew and grew and grew because the market at that time this was in 1989, and the market was just growing and growing, and we established a nice distribution network, and that's how I got into it.
Right. And Mitch, like growing up with your father in the business, and I'm not sure if he was still in it when you were born, but assuming he was, if he wasn't, correct me, but what was it like getting into the hobby and having your own father as somebody to like as a resource, just to his experience, so you could try to maybe not make some of the mistakes that he made or that we've all made as we've gotten our feet wet in the hobby.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know a world without sports cards. When I was born, my dad still had his distribution company. In 2000, we moved to Florida, where he had like a regular LCS. And my sister and I would just sit in his office opening packs of Pokemon cards, which now are worth like numbers I can't even conceive of, because these are like original Pokemon cards back then. And I like hockey cards. To me, I thought like looked the coolest because they back then they were really shiny, and the inserts were crazy back then. They don't really make them like that anymore. So I always liked hockey cards, and I think honestly my interest in the NHL video games at the time, which I thought and still to this day think is the best sports video game, kind of helped me appreciate hockey. So I had a literal like treasure chest just full of cards, just maybe, I don't know, 50,000 hockey cards. And I would just like reach my hand into this chest, pull out a card. It would be some player I never heard of. I read all their stats, and then I like just memorize everything. And my love for hockey is sustained since then. I like other sports, but hockey is definitely my favorite sport.
And you guys aren't Canadian as I am. Or Les was from the previous episode. You guys are American. Where are you, Mitch? Where are you located? Where are you from, and where do you live now?
Yeah, so I live in Chicago. I was born in Chicago, but I actually spent most of my life in South Florida in a small city called Coral Springs, which is about 15 minutes away from where the Florida Panthers play. So growing up, it was actually like I had honestly zero friends. Or I had one friend for a couple of years who liked hockey, and I got him into hockey cards too. But other than that, like it was pretty honestly like alienating, like being a hockey fan in South Florida. Even right next to where the Panthers play, you just like no one that I went to school with liked the Florida Panthers. I mean, the Panthers struggled so much to sell tickets. Like I remember my favorite is they had one, you could actually send in a losing lottery ticket and exchange that for Panther tickets. Wow. So like that's how desperate they were to fill seats. And they weren't any good. They before this year, they won their last playoff series the year I was born, 1996. So kind of young for people in the hobby in a relative sense.
Al, where are you located?
Well, I'm in Florida still. I'm actually moving to Chicago next week, but I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. So okay. I was a Red Wings fan growing up and always been a huge hockey fan. My dad used to take me to the games, and I remember going to Gordie Howe's last game at the Olympia, the whole thing. And as a matter, I was just thinking of another story, though. The jersey that Mitchell's wearing right there is the Winnipeg Jets. It's the Teemu Selanne. It's actually his second year, but it's the Stanley Cup year. I got that jersey. I met a guy named Andre Cournoyer. He was Yvon Cournoyer's brother. And I met him at the National in 1990 or 91. And I started sending him boxes of the Pokemon cards that Mitchell mentioned and trade for jerseys. And he would go to the line and he would get any player I wanted with any name or anything I wanted on him. So I got Selanne and Lemieux and Waugh, Gretzky's, and I got 4 different Gretzky's, every team he was on, and all the jerseys I wanted in trade for Pokemon cards. And so that was just another side story.
Well, no, you mentioned that. Someone actually made the comment in the chat here about the jersey. I can't see it right now, but right here, David G says, "Oh my God, what a jersey!" And of course, I think you're wearing that for my benefit, Mitch, because I'm from Winnipeg originally, and Teemu Selanne is my favorite professional athlete of all time. So I thank you for wearing that jersey tonight, if that's why you did in fact wear it. Yep. Awesome. I'm going to go to a few quick comments here. I want to say hi to Jake, hi to David Kaplan, Colin Murray, what's going on? Skeppy, back to Les sending that money to Hong Kong, says, if I couldn't fly there, I would just have sent a friend, all expenses paid, and a day vacation. There you go, Les. That's an idea for you. And Les pays back the compliment to you, Mitch, says, your PC is amongst one of his favorites. That's really, really nice. Justin Vick says, cool dad. My dad would ban me from cards whenever I did something wrong. I hear that. And it looks like we have another member of the family in the chat here. I guess you have a brother, Ben, and you, Al, have a son, Ben, says, as Al's other son who plays and collects Magic cards. I find this very funny. Awesome. He says, I'm Mitch's younger brother, and I rebelliously collect Magic the Gathering cards. Well, hey, collect what you like, Ben, and welcome to the chat. I hope you enjoy this episode with your father and your brother. Baz back in the house. What's going on? Michael Ham, great to see you again, buddy. Hope to see you at the National about a month from now. Colin Murray lived in Coral Springs and went to Panther games when tickets were $5 and free parking in 2010. That much resonate with you guys. Carlisle Rude, I think, says, I have Topps team sets of the Atlanta Flames, 1973 to 79. Chad Shipper, just tuned in and heard Red Wings fan, hooked already. Good stuff. Hello, Chad. All right. So, Mitch, tell us what you collect. It's funny. It's a coincidence that you're coming on after Les, who collects high-end auto patches. You do it too, but a little bit differently. Talk a bit about your approach to collecting and what you do collect, and then we're going to talk about what you don't collect.
Sure. Okay. So, when I started really, having a PC and didn't just, get all the, tubs of hockey cards, I wanted every Martin Brodeur card that I could find. And I still have my collection. I haven't touched it in a long time, but I had maybe 100, 150 Martin Brodeur cards. And then as I got older, and I'm talking, so maybe this is age 6 to 8 that I had, I just wanted every Martin Brodeur card. And then as I got older, I really wanted autograph cards, but I couldn't get the Martin Brodeur autograph cards. So, my dad and I would open SP Authentic primarily. That was our go-to box. And then something happened in 2005, 2006. Upper Deck made this product called the Cup. I remember when my dad told me about it, he couldn't believe it. He's like, Mitchell, there's this new product. It's $300 for one pack. He just couldn't wrap his mind around it. That's how much the price was for Upper Deck the Cup when it came out in 05, 06 was $300. And so he was like, if it's $300 for one pack, I remember him telling me, I'm like, here's this card of Chris Drury. I paid $8 for this. It's from this product. It was a Chris Drury 0506 signature patch. And to this day, I still think that is the nicest looking set I've ever seen. It was my favorite set. So we found that was the first one we got. And I think the second one we got was Robert Esch for $12. So now we have two of them. And I didn't even know at the time how big the set was. And I was just like, Dad, we got to get all of these cards. And I knew, so the three big ones are Crosby, Ovechkin, and Gretzky. I have all of them right here.
I disagree.
What's that, Al?
Well, Mitchell, what's the biggest card, the hardest card to get, the rarest?
Well, I'll get to that one. So these are the three most expensive. And the cool thing about the Crosby and the Ovechkin is that they're game used.
Yeah.
So people that don't know, Crosby and Ovechkin are two of the only players to have all their cup cards to be game used. Mikko Koivu is the other one, I guess. Upper Deck
Rookie wise, and you're talking rookie wise, of course.
Yeah, rookie wise. And Mikko Koivu is the third one. So those were the big cards. And back then, I think we got, and the prices today are obviously so much higher. The Crosby and the Ovechkin were $300 each. And then the Gretzky, I think, was $415 or something. And that was an insane amount of money back then. And then, so eventually we finished the set, except there was one card, as we finished the set probably 2009. It's an 86 card set. At the time, there's only 82 cards on the checklist. But we found out there's a Henrik Zetterberg, a Borje Salming, and a Dominik Hasek, who's a redemption, that are not on the checklist. And then there's another card that I saw. I swore I saw it one time when I was browsing eBay sales in 2007 of Peter Stastny, but I never saw another one ever again. But I was so confident it existed. And then, fast forward to 2014, we think we're done with the set, and I've just given up on the Stastny. Maybe I dreamed it. And I saw one for go on eBay. I called my dad. I'm like, Dad, there's a Peter Stastny available, and I think like we got it for like $80, and our max bid
No,
was
210.
Was it 210? Okay, I
Yeah.
thought, well, our max bid was like $500 or something. And then, you know, back then, it was kind of a secret that was a short printed card, because there's no way it's numbered at 75, but there's no way that there's more than 3 or 4 copies. So that was like, you know, we finished that set. That was like my big, like, okay, no one has this. As far as I know, no one else has ever completed the set with this Stastny. So that, and then from there, you know, I've just wanted more like patch autograph cards. And that's what I collect today. So right now I'm building 2 patch autograph card sets, the 0607 Cup signature patch set, and then the 0405 Ultimate patch autograph sets. I still buy, like, I have a very specific like range of cards that I'll buy, that like patch autographs, mostly from the Cup. I have a rule that I won't buy any card that there's more than 100 copies of, because then I feel like it's just too accessible, and then there's no fun in chasing it. Like any card you can buy like any day of the week is just, there's zero fun. That's like buying a stock to me. It has to be fun, and if it's not fun, then it does nothing for me in terms of what I want out of collecting cards. So first 3 years of the Cup, any patch autographs of a player that's like half decent, and it's like a good patch, or it doesn't even have to be a good patch all the time. Like that's what I collect. The rarer, the better. That's what really gets me going, I guess.
Well, you've picked some great sets. I mean, the 506 signature patches, I've owned all those cards. I don't own, like, those 3. I don't own them anymore. I wish I never sold them, because they're wonderful cards now. Well, they were wonderful back then, but now they're just more valuable. So obviously I'd like to still have them. But the 0405 Ultimate patch set, I mean, that's a bit of a dark horse of a set, because that was the year of the lockout. So a lot of people kind of ignored the hobby back then, but Upper Deck really stepped up and came out with some pretty cool products. And the Ultimate Collection was one of them. I mean, just some amazing cards from that set. Yeah, like that is just beautiful. It's just absolutely beautiful. Like, I love it. Just love it. I had a Gretzky Kings card from that set, which I don't have anymore. Wonderful. And then you're also doing the 0607, the second year of the Cup, which is another set that I just love too. So yeah. I mean, that's stunning. And what a great card. Yeah, I love it. We are card brothers on that one. I happen to have a copy of that Gordy Howe myself. So yeah, good stuff. Now, and it's funny because Eugene makes a comment here. He says, waiting for Mitch to discuss his dislike for Young Gun. So let's get into it, because I said at the beginning, I said, let's talk about what you do collect, but let's also talk about what you don't collect. And you mentioned to me there's 2 classes of cards you don't collect, or 2 types of cards, I guess. I'm not going to spoil it. Why don't you talk about what they are? Before you do that, I just want to bring up Rich's comment here. Ultimate Collection has some of the nicest cards in existence. Well, 405 series was exceptional. Yeah, I hear you on that. So, Mitch, let's talk about what you don't collect now.
Yeah. So the 2 types of cards I don't have any interest in are, one, graded cards. If I needed a card and it was in a slab, I haven't run into this, but if I did run into this situation, I would crack it. I think they're clunky, and ultimately it's just like another guy's opinion of what he thinks of the card. As long as, you know, to me, as long as the card doesn't have anything distracting, is like the term I use, then I don't really care if there's like a little edge whitening or like, to me, it's the same card. I think like people like finding these micro chips in like under a magnifying glass that no one can actually see. I think that's, to me, I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I think it's kind of ridiculous for that to be the difference of sometimes thousands of dollars between like a PSA 9 and a PSA 10. Especially because, as you know, the grades are not replicable. You can crack it and get a different grade every single time. So you're paying so much money because you got the right guy's opinion that day. To me, it doesn't really make any sense. And the other type of card that I don't collect, and it's not because I don't like these cards, I just don't think they're worth the premium that they command, are rookie cards. So like for $200, you can get like a nice like Patrice Bergeron limited logos, or you can get like like a Young Gun of like, I don't know the market well enough to know like whose Young Gun is $200. I don't know, maybe John Tavares. I don't know, but I don't even know.
Well,
but
yeah, they come out at 200, but within a year
Yeah.
or two, most young guns start out. Even Lafreniere was, before he hit the ice, his card was on for $400. I think you can pick up his young gun now probably for $50. I would guess. I wouldn't pay any more than that for. I wouldn't even pay that for one right now. Well, maybe I would. I think he has upside still, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. So okay, so like even like if we use like Connor McDavid for example, I don't know exactly how much his Young Gun sells for now, but I know it's several $1,000s. I think there's probably at least 20,000 copies of the card. If you look at the pop reports of Beckett, and yeah, it's probably higher. I know that they printed extra that year for McDavid. So like to me, there can't be that many of a card, and it like, because to me it seems obvious that eventually, no matter how good Connor McDavid is, there's just too many of the card for like, enough people have that card that want it, then the excess will go down.
Yeah.
Too many.
Yeah, and we see people that stack like dozens of them too. So they eventually need to dispose, I think, when you're stacking that many. And is there going to be a market for them? I hear what you're saying. I'm not high on Young Guns myself, so I'm definitely with you. I do think there is still value in holding certain cards that are more commodity like a Young Gun. Al, I want to ask you, I want to, based on what Mitch was saying, I want to get your opinion on both of these things, because you've been around the hobby for as long as I have. I've been in this hobby since the early 80s. You've been in, I guess, since then, maybe even longer, but as far as I know, you got into the business in about 89 from the sounds of it. So you've seen this evolution. Two things. One being the supply, the overall supply of these common cards, like the Young Guns that come out today, the McDavids, the Mike Trout updates, the Luka Prism Silvers, all these cards that are printed in large quantities. Do you, like, people often have said recently that, we're heading into another junk wax era based on all these different parallels coming out. Do you see, and this isn't something that I told you I wanted to talk about, so, forgive me for that, but do you see any parallels between the 89 to 93 era versus what we're seeing in the last few years?
Actually, I would say that junk wax, in my opinion, is more associated with the volume of just packaged product. They just go to the print machines and they run and run and run. I think what you're talking about is more like junk inserts versus junk wax. Junk wax to me is more of the bigger picture of how much Pro Set and some of those companies used to just make hundreds of thousands of cases, if not more. And today you're talking about inserts that are still only randomly appearing, unless, I've got stories about how inserts appear otherwise, but if in today's marketplace, if you're talking about a Young Gun Connor McDavid from 2015 and there's 50,000 copies of it, where did they come from? Because they're only randomly inserted, 3 Young Guns per box or something?
Yeah.
So I don't know, like how many can you get into the marketplace? How many boxes were created if you just do the math and look at it that way? So that's different. And to me, they used to make in the old days though, they would make wax just so they would have more product to sell. Like I think it really started when Shaquille O'Neal came into the industry in 1992, 93. That's really when I saw just incredible quantities of product being printed. But it was really in that time, though, all you were getting was the rookie cards. Mitchell doesn't collect rookies, but there would be nothing for him to collect. There was no real inserts. There was nothing there was a couple of parallels and a couple of insert sets, but there was never autographs or anything that was really worth chasing. And the boxes were also very inexpensive. I clearly remember buying boxes of 89 Score football and 89 Pro Set football for $15 a box and buying cases, for $250. And it's unbelievable how much one pack, like I was saying to Mitchell, even in 2005, one pack cost $300 of the cup. And that was crazy. And now I look at some of the prices of packs today and I'm like, wow, everything is expensive. An average box of Prism football or something is $300. It looks like. It's amazing.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on how grading changed the industry? Again, you were like myself in the hobby before grading was a part of the hobby. What do you think of grading? And kind of like speak to Mitchell's position on grading if you want, and just how does yours relate to his and your
Well,
thoughts on it
speaking of
overall?
grading, this is something I didn't tell you before, but I worked for the first grading company in the baseball card industry as well. It's called SGC, and I was out of Vernon Hills, Illinois, with a guy named Joe Merkel. And that was the first grading company. They were a precursor to the PSA. And as far as that goes, I thought at the time it was a fantastic idea because it was mostly they were grading vintage cards and verifying the authenticity, and people had trimmed them, et cetera, et cetera. Now I think it's more because the dollar amounts are so high, and I see that these tech people in California are just investing in graded cards, and the reason that they're buying the graded cards is because they feel that that's a safe commodity type item that an objective third party has said, okay, this is a 10, grade of a 10, and it's authentic, autograph, etc. So they're investing in it. I think that grading has created a tremendous false value of some of the cards in the marketplace. I think that eventually all this grading stuff, like Mitchell said, you're going to go to a population report. Luka Doncic 2018 rookie card, and there's 50,000 PSA 10s. And even though they sell on eBay for $500 or whatever they're going for, at some point the reality is going to hit the world. And that's what as far as that goes, as far as the grading goes.
Yeah, I understand that perspective. And I think that that's a good example of it, is that Luka Doncic, when you've got literally have people with hundreds of PSA 10s in their inventory or their collection, their stash. I don't know what happens to that card once that person decides to sell those, or maybe they're gonna. Al, you'll remember this in the early 90s. People were stacking 50 rookie cards of every player, and just in those clamshell or those snap tight holders were, right? You could buy a lot. You could find ads in Beckett and Sports Collector Digest. You could find these ads to buy a lot of 100 Mike Mussina Upper Deck rookies, right? For however much it was. People were doing that thinking that they were then going to sell that as a brick as well, or one by one sell them. I think we're in the same situation now with the people have been calling it the junk slab era, because there's just so many slabs out there of cards that aren't really worthy of being in slabs. So I wonder if I think you guys are right on some cards, and it doesn't apply to other cards as well, because some cards are rare and do benefit from that third party opinion on what the card is, what condition the card is in. So
I think it's better for authenticity purposes more so than the condition. That know that it's actually a real issued card, and someone just didn't print it on a laser printer.
Yeah, I agree. I think the authenticity is kind of a precursor to the grading, and then the grading, especially on a card that is old, I see more value to it, like on the older cards where you can, and the reason why grading came about in the first place, people were the internet, eBay, buying cards sight unseen. So it's nice to know what that card condition is if you're not buying it in person. If you're buying it in person, then the whole buy the card, not the grade thing seems to really hits home with me. So, but I definitely do see benefits to grading, and what the other thing is that it's become a huge part of the hobby. It's bigger in the hobby than bubblegum is. So I don't know. Not the bubblegum's around anymore, but you know what I mean? It's taken over for all intents and purposes.
Jeremy, I do want to add, if I was to collect vintage cards, I do think it's very valuable for vintage cards. I just don't collect vintage cards. But I do appreciate vintage cards. But if I did collect them, I want them to be graded. So I just wanted to add that caveat. Yeah,
no, fair. Appreciate that. Colin Murray says SGC, the superlative grading company, turned into SGC we know now. Is that your understanding as well, Al?
Yeah.
That's the company that you work for. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. I didn't know that we had on the show tonight somebody who worked with the very first grading company in the hobby. So that's something I wasn't even aware of until right now. That's really cool.
I will tell you, I saw some of the most unbelievable cards working there. Like people would mail in Hannes Wagner's and the Ty Cobbs and the Piedmonts and all the old and like unbelievable classic vintage cards. I got to see everything out there. It was amazing. That was the best part of the job.
Very cool. Very cool. PSA 10 comes in and says AccuCard was grading cards in 1989. Very good. I never heard of AccuCard. Al, have you heard of AccuCard?
No.
No. I guess if someone who was a major distributor in the 90s hadn't heard of them, they must not have been that. I don't know how long they would have lasted for, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, well let's keep going, Al, here, because I did kind of tout this episode as a few Wild West sort of stories in terms of someone who was involved back then, because you did tell me a bunch of things when I met you, and let's go through a few. And Mitch, I want to keep you involved in this, so if you have anything to jump in with, just let me know as we go through. But let's Al, let's start with one of the things that collectors these days wonder about is just like how many cards leave the card companies through the back door. If they don't get packed out, they just get kind of sold off on the side, whether they're stolen, whether it's done for the company. I don't know what goes on. Can you shed any light on backdooring on cards that are like the backdooring that was going on in the early 90s?
Well, I can clearly tell you that there was one company out of Texas, and they would offer insert cards as a method to buy more cases of the wax. It would be very common practice. I actually I couldn't find them for the show, but because I'm in the middle of moving to Chicago, as I'd mentioned, but I've got 2 Frank Thomas cards that are crash numbered. They have the same number on them. And when I received those, I actually called up Kevin Isaacson from the Sports Collectors Digest, who called up the manufacturer to find out that not only were there 2, but there was 5 cards that were crash numbered with the same number. And the excuse that they told him was that in case the person that got it in the pack originally, it was damaged, they would have a replacement. And I said, well, what about the other 3 copies? Well, I find out I end up in the long run that those other 3 copies would end up going to a distributor like myself as a bribe to purchase, buy 100 cases of their wax. We're going to throw in 100 of these insert cards that you can sell or give away or do whatever you want with. And that's how some of that, and that was for inserts in particular. In addition to that, other companies like someone in the Pacific Northwest would offer me every single card that they made, every set that they would send me the whole set, every insert, every single card, all of it included. So I would just purchase more of their cards. And then it also led into the promo cards, which I guess would be a separate issue. But one other factor to get cards out the back door were numbered cases. I remember clearly there was a company that had an exclusive deal with Shaquille O'Neal in 1992 to make cards. And the next year they had a deal with Chris Webber the same way. And at that time they were making numbered 10-box cases. And we bought hundreds, if not thousands of the 10-box cases. But then in addition to that, they made these 32-box cases that were not numbered. They were just more wax boxes because it was just from the printer. And then all of a sudden we had just as much as we could purchase available to us to sell to the stores that we were selling to. And then the other way that we had some of the backdoor activity was the actual companies that were hired by the manufacturers to do the printing, just a printer. And the printers would call me up and say, hey, Al, we ran an extra 20% on this card product. If you'd like, I can sell you cases because we know that you buy them from them. We'll sell them to you for half the price. So I bought some cases like that as well. And that's how some of the product got out the back door. As far as employee stealing, I didn't really encounter that too often. From the manufacturer side of it. And then lastly, but I could always call up a manufacturer and ask them what kind of a deals that they have. And they would always find something to entice me to buy more product from them, whether it was insert cards or autographs or something at different times. So that's how a lot of product got out the back door.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, and no pressure to answer, but you kind of mentioned the regional location of these companies. Are you able to name these companies?
If you'd like me to, I guess I have no loyalty to any of them anymore. One was, Pacific, and Pinnacle was probably the most guilty of finagling some of the stuff. I really don't want to talk about the companies that did with the printing per se, just because of that's kind of backdoor stuff, whatever. But Pinnacle did the most with the inserts. They were the ones that had the Frank Thomas cards, and I'll find them and I'll send them to you. I'll show you pictures of them. But Pinnacle did a lot of stuff that was underhanded.
Shady.
Yeah. And then there was another company in Bannockburn, Illinois, the Leaf Company. They would entice me with Frank Thomas autographed items to buy
Okay.
more of their wax.
And what company was it that did that you said had the Shaquille and Chris Webber deal?
So that was Classic Games.
Okay. Okay.
And they had the exclusive with Shaquille O'Neal. And that's really what helped my company really take off, was that my partner was dating the woman that was head of logistics for Classic Games in Austell, Georgia. And when the Shaquille O'Neal wax came out, you could not get enough of it. No matter how much you had, you were selling anything with Shaquille O'Neal. And we got over 1,000 cases before some companies even got any. And I knew it was wrong, but we just kept getting them in. And it was crazy. It really was crazy.
Mitch, like, you know, as a modern day collector, hearing this, I mean, this is, I think it's somewhat before your time, but like, what goes through your mind when you think about, you know, these sort of the history of the hobby and some of the ways that these companies were some of their strategies to just put more product out there, probably to the detriment of the collectors themselves, because even back in the early 90s, as collectors, it was about the money. You know, sure, there's people collecting, but everybody who's spending money on cards still has that fiscal kind of responsibility going through their mind as they're buying these things. So what's your take on this here in these stories?
Yeah, so I heard these stories growing up my whole life, and I think it definitely had a big part in kind of shaping my hobby philosophy. And I think that's why I'm so allergic to cards with high print runs. Just because I'm maybe hyper aware of, you know, how big the hobby was in the early 90s and how hard it crashed. I mean, even today, you know, it's a shame really, because, you know, it would be awesome if, you know, Jaromir Jagr or Dominic Hasek, players like that, had like these really like high value scarce rookie cards. And you know, as a hobby, we were robbed of that because of how much they were overprinted. And to this day, you know, it's a shame that Jaromir Jagr rookie cards are basically worthless. Even Martin Brodeur doesn't have any valuable rookie cards. And to me, that's like a huge shame.
Yeah.
So
Team Mussolani.
Yeah.
Who you're wearing.
Pavel Bure. I mean, there's tons of them who just don't have valuable rookie cards because they were just printed so much. So it definitely shaped a huge part of my hobby philosophy.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think probably for the better for you. I want to, Al, you had mentioned to me something about, and this is a very popular card in the hobby to this day, so I want to hear your knowledge on this. The 1994 Upper Deck Baseball, I believe, I forget what product it was exactly, but there is a dual autograph of Ken Griffey Jr. and Mickey Mantle that is to this day a very popular, sought-after card. I see it on Instagram weekly. Someone's posting it for one reason or another. You have a story on this card. Can you share it?
Yes, it was 1994 Upper Deck Baseball Series 2 hobby. It was 20 box cases. We would get in, 50 cases, 100, whatever quantity of cases. But the thing was, back in the day, when Upper Deck made those cases, they had the autograph, the Mantle or Griffey or the combination autograph, one per case. And of the 20 boxes in the case, 19 of them had shrink wrap where the Upper Deck logo would be to the right, and one box it would be slightly to the left or slightly different. It was very clear and easy to see that one of the boxes shrink wrap was clearly different than the other 19. So my guys that worked for me in the warehouse would always open up a fresh case as we were distributing by the box. Typically, most people did buy full cases sometimes, but typically with single boxes or a couple boxes. They would take out the box that had the autograph in it, and we would know it was clearly different, and bring it into my office, and I'd probably open it and, do something with it. Like myself, if I would say to a customer, spend X amount of money, I'll give you this autograph Mantle card or this autograph. But the fact of the matter was it was clearly different than the other boxes, and it was easy to determine which one it was. I mean, I can tell you right now, if you had a sealed case of 94 Upper Deck Baseball, we could show you which box has the autograph in it.
I mean, that's something, I don't know how many people know that the box with that autograph is distinguishable from the other boxes. Was that common knowledge back then, or is it common knowledge now, or are we breaking something here tonight that not very many people in the hobby know about?
I wouldn't know other than, my own knowledge of it. So to me, it's common knowledge, but maybe it is a secret.
I've asked people this before that are, kind of deep into the baseball, and the people that I've asked were completely unaware of it. Maybe like now someone else has, brought this back to light. I mean, I don't know how many cases remain of the product, so I don't know how useful the information is, but I mean, maybe there are still a bunch of them, but I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, Mitch, that like if most of that product has been cracked by now, this information isn't it's not useful, but it's still interesting, you know? And Al, I mean, some people are going to watch and they're going to hear what you just said about how, they'd bring the box into you and you'd open it up. Like, some people are going to think that that wasn't the right thing to do. How would you respond to those comments right now that I know are going to come?
You're right. I guess, looking back at it, objectively speaking, the hobby or whoever was buying from us should have had the same odds of anyone else of getting that box. But I guess because of some of the other, I guess there's no excuse for why it happened. I would say that it was probably along the lines of some of the other stuff that was going on in the hobby with the insert autographs and different things of using them to generate more sales. And perhaps at that time, we just looked at it as an opportunity to offer a customer something, a really nice gift for purchasing more product from us. Yeah. Yes, I know, like when I owned a card store, we would never search the boxes. We put out the packs and we want the customers to get the pack with the good autograph in it. But on the distribution side, I don't, maybe because we were just going through thousands of cases, the guys would automatically, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I guess looking back at it was a little sleazy. I don't know if it was sleazy per se, but I guess, it would be a reasonable comment for someone to make at this time.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair response, and I think that we learn as we go, and that's all we can do is move forward. And so appreciate you addressing that in any event. I'll talk about promo cards, because I remember when promo cards, I remember the Brett Hull promo from Pro Set Hockey. I remember the Gretzky and Patrick Waugh promos from Upper Deck Hockey before Upper Deck Hockey even existed. And these things were very hotly pursued and very interesting to people. What's your recollection of kind of the beginning of the and promo cards nowadays? Like, people don't care about them. Promo cards are nothing. They're now show cards. People really don't care much about show cards. But can you just explain to people who weren't around back then just how big the promo card business was back in the early 90s?
Well, I will tell you that in 1991 at the Anaheim National, I'm walking up to the place. I'm pulling up to it from a cab, and all of a sudden I see hundreds of people gathered outside in these groups, and they were like pulling and buying and trading and selling. It was all promo cards. They went inside, and the manufacturers were giving out promo cards. I remember the most collectible one. There was a 4-card set with Looney Tunes and Nolan Ryan. It was from Upper Deck for Upper Deck Baseball. And people were just paying like $50 for a promo card and this and that. And people were going absolutely crazy. And that really is when it started. And then being a distributor, all the manufacturers would ship me boxes filled with promo cards to give away for their upcoming releases for us to do pre-sales on. So I accumulated we would get thousands of promo cards. I mean, we couldn't even give them away fast enough. And we ended up just with like a huge pile of promo cards to give away. But it did really generate a lot of interest, because back then a promo card was almost like an insert, because it was available only through distributors and some stores. Everyone else, you couldn't get them. So if you collected, Griffey Jr. and he was the promo card, you wanted that Griffey Jr. card. And Upper Deck was smart, because they used people like Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, Reggie Jackson. They used the top athletes, Joe Montana, and so that they always gave away good promo cards. And so, yeah, there's no interest in those cards anymore. But back in 1991, it was like gold. It was insane.
Yeah, I'm glad you point out that Upper Deck used those kind of, the better players, because that now is I'm starting to remember that, and remember the feeling or the thought I had that, hey, you've got these promo. I think the Upper Deck baseball promo card that came out wasn't he one of the part owners of Upper Deck? I can't think of his name right now, but not a very enticing card. And then they started using better players like Gretzky, Patrick Waugh, Joe Montana, Reggie Jackson, as you mentioned. I also seem to recall some other promo cards from other companies that weren't very attractive, in terms of their collectability, but the cards were nice. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, actually, Mitchell was a baby. We went to Jamaica. It was 1997, and Upper Deck SPX came out, and the promo cards they made were, and that was when they had the holograms. You moved the cards, and the promo cards were Michael Jordan and Penny Hardaway. And I brought a box of 50 Michael Jordans with me to Jamaica on the trip. And I don't think I spent a penny. I bartered with the Jamaicans for everything that we got on the trip were the Michael Jordan cards. So that's the power of the promo also.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, I'm going to go to a couple of comments here. Skeppy asks, what about 1996 Select Certified Baseball? I think people will be disappointed to know how many more mirror cards are out there, especially gold. I've heard of this too. Are you familiar with this product, Al?
I know the product. I don't know specifically that they made additional cards for, and I don't know which cards and which sets they actually did overprint on or make 5 of every copy. I just know that there was the one card that I checked in on, and that was in particular that they made 5 copies of. But I can't say any specific products like 1996 Select Certified Baseball, whether they did make them, whether the golds or the reds or whatever were crash numbered in multiple same numbers or not.
Fair. Okay, good. And then PSA 10, who's been around a while, says at the 94 National in Chicago, I had several dealer friends who each had 1,000 1993 finest promo sets. Promos were backdoored more than anything throughout the 90s. Seems like legitimate to me. I mean, it just seems like that's the way it was back then. Do you concur?
I would say that they weren't backdoored more than insert cards because the promos were just given out.
They were meant to be given out.
I don't think that they were backdoored per se, but they made them in excess after that 90. When it first started, it became, there's a big market here. And then they started really cranking them out.
Yeah. And Adam Lynn says, isn't it pretty likely that there are still shenanigans happening from the manufacturers to this day? Any insights into that, Al?
I'm not involved in the hobby other than I buy cards, with Mitchell. So yeah. I'm not involved in the buying and selling them anymore. So, and I don't have any direct manufacturer accounts, so I don't want to know.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I'm certainly not qualified to comment, but my thoughts on it, I'll still share anyway, are just, like some of the thoughts that come to my mind are that, the cards are so much more valuable now than they were in the early 90s, that the card companies better have some security measures in place that they likely wouldn't have had back then because of just the value of the cards now. Even a box of Panini regular issue Prism is, whatever it is now, $1,100-$1,200. A few years ago, that was $150, $200 box sort of thing. So listen, it's hard to think that it never goes on. So, but that's just up for everyone to speculate for sure. Al, I want you to talk a little bit about ProSet and Lud Denny. Lud Denny was the founder of ProSet. I never met him, never knew him, but Brian Gray's been on with me several times. He worked with him. You obviously knew him. I believe he was quite the character. Speak a bit to your perspective on Lud and like the impact he had on the junk wax era and the hobby and some of the funny things that he got up to.
Well, I would say that Lud would probably be the number one contributor to the entire junk wax concept. I think that the company ProSet printed more cards, 1990 ProSet hockey, those orange boxes. I can see those millions of those in the 1990 ProSet football. In particular, those years, he printed, I saw once a warehouse filled with cases. And we're talking a really big warehouse. And these were he made a joke to me once. Oh, well, you just print money. So let's just leave it at that.
What about, those sets were really known to be filled with error cards. Error cards nowadays, people don't care about errors anymore. I mean, there are collectors who still collect error, like, the famous Billy Ripken card with the bat knob, obviously the F face on there. Still people do chase down some ProSet errors, but what is your understanding of kind of where these error cards came from?
The error cards were intentionally made by the manufacturers to generate more interest in their products. I was told that one person from Fleer told me that what they would do is intentionally make some errors so that then they can make a corrected version and then create a scarcity for the original error cards, like the Billy Ripken, for instance. And then they would make, there's the Billy Ripken, the original one, then there's the white one, then there's a scratched out one, and then there's the black box one. So they made so many different errors, and then they corrected them. And they didn't even correct them right because that would create even more, interest in that card. And so when Upper Deck came out in '89, I knew for a fact that they made like those reverse errors, and some of the mistakes they made were made unintentional, to make more of a demand on their products and to make the first series more valuable. Some of the manufacturers would tell me, we're going to send you some of the first print runs with the errors. So they would make it like more of enticing. If you buy 100 cases of this, we'll make sure you get some of the first print run. So now they have like first off the line. Yeah. Back then it was first off the line errors. In a sense.
So Mitch, let's go to you for a second. Just talk about these error cards. I mean, I was never a big error card guy. I mean, I perked up when I first saw them. I had a shop from 91 to 93 myself, 91 to 94. And, error cards were a big rage back then, but I never thought they were cool. I never really understood them. But for someone who's, younger than me and been in the hobby very seriously, and sort of speaking on, not that you can speak on behalf of other people, but I'm asking you because you do represent a new demographic in the hobby. What do you think about these error cards and that strategy that was employed back in the day?
So are you asking specifically about the intentional early 90s error cards or error cards as a whole?
I'm talking about intentional errors, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember, like when I was very young, maybe 10, 11, and I was just like, I would literally just like read like every Beckett article about like the hobby. I just wanted to know everything I could, and reading stories about the Billy Ripken card in particular, I thought were really interesting. I never owned one, but I thought like, oh, that's just like a cool part of the hobby. I think the other errors that aren't as popular maybe aren't because they're not as iconic. I don't have any interest in them. And then I'm thinking today like maybe some of the modern errors like might have been intentional. Like I don't want to speculate. I mean, there's a couple like really big ones from the modern era. The Ryan Whitney cards with the Sidney Crosby autographs come to mind. Yeah. And then the McKinnon Pink Young Guns. So I never really considered that they might have been intentional, but as we're like going through this, like maybe. So it's interesting to think about.
I doubted on both of those instances. I think that the people who actually put the cards together just grabbed the wrong autographs for the Crosby one, the Crosby Whitney. Just my thought. I mean, I could be way off on that. I'm sure there will be conspiracy theorists who think that is the case, and it very well could be. The McKinnon Pink Shoulder, that's another one. I think that's a printing error, but hey, could be totally wrong. And if it was intentional, then hey, you got one over on us, Upper Deck.
Yeah, well, what makes me think that is these modern examples just happen to be the biggest players that year. I don't know if you're aware, there's a dual scripted swatches that has Wayne Gretzky and Yari Curry that was put in a different card. I forgot who is on the card that they put there. It seems like all these examples that I can think of always are with the top players, which maybe that's a coincidence, but that's what is kind of making the gears shifting a little bit. It just seems to always be the top players.
That's a good point.
The Sidney Crosby cards, they would quadruple check that they were the right autographs.
You'd think. I just don't see how that helps the value of that particular card. The McKinnon's another story, but I hear what you're saying. Flea Market Mixtape says that error cards just plummeted. Yeah, for sure, and deservedly so. I think it was a fad that did not last very long. Justin Vick, wants to know, do you know the secret of pulling a 1990 Topps no-name Frank Thomas? Al, are you familiar with that card?
I'm familiar with the card. I don't know the secret.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely don't know the secret to pulling one of those. Okay, Al, you've also been, utilized by the FBI in a couple of high-profile sports card memorabilia cases. What can you tell us about that?
Well, when I was running Card World in Chicago, the first one was with Mickey Mantle in 1995 when he passed away. We had just purchased 300 autographed baseballs from a company in New York called Madison Sports. And they were mixing in some real ones or some fake ones with the real ones. And then after he passed away, they were all fake. And then the FBI had Operation Bullpen, and we helped them prosecute that guy with just purchasing more and giving them up, they had evidence. But the biggest one was the one in Chicago. And I forgot the gentleman's name. I know his first name was John, but we bought a lot of Michael Jordan autographed Air Jordans, basketballs, jerseys, etc., that were all from this company that were supposed to be legitimate. And some of them were at the beginning, but then they were all fake. And the FBI came to me one day and said, "We need your help to bust this company. You need to go buy some more stuff from these guys." And I bought it and gave it to them, and they analyzed it. And it was all fake, and they made the bust.
What's it like when you get a call from the FBI? Like, what goes through your mind at that point? Like, do you want to be involved? Are you obligated to be involved? Are you excited? Are you like nervous?
Well, raising Mitchell, I got calls from the FBI regularly. No, I'm just kidding.
That'd be your fault, Al. You raised them.
You're right. Now, you know what? I really wasn't. I didn't think twice about it because I knew it was ruining the hobby and it was ruining my business. So I was glad to help.
Yeah, that's cool. That's pretty cool. That's really neat. So from your perspective, Al, what's it like now? You're out. You're basically out of the hobby from a commercial basis. You're not running any businesses anymore, but you're buying cards and building a collection with your son. What's it like? And I ask this like very authentically because I've got a son who's young now, 3, and I wonder, is he going to get into sports cards when he's in his mid-20s and forward? And I hope he will. But what's it like for you, a guy who was in the hobby, obviously a collector as a kid and got into the hobby from a business perspective, to have one of your sons, at least, I know your other son's into Magic the Gathering, but to have your son Mitch here, really passionate about sports cards. What's it like for you?
Well, for me, it's great because it was a great father-son bonding activity. Obviously, we would travel and go to different trade shows and to Canada and different places and buying wax boxes and opening boxes and pulling the cards. And it taught Mitchell a lot about business. And I think that as far as a bonding scenario, I don't know if there's a better one. I mean, obviously, I'm a little biased, and I don't want my other son, Ben, to think that I'm not as close to him. But Mitchell and I spent a lot of time going to trade shows and talking about cards and just I educated him a lot. He was very interested. He's a very inquisitive. He's a smart kid, and he wants to know all about it. So he'd ask me a lot of questions about what happened in the hobby, what happened with this, what happened with that. And so it was interesting for both of us because I had good stories to tell him, and he had an inquisitive mind. So I really enjoyed, I still do. Like, I'm glad that I gave him all my good cards and that he has a great collection, and that's what it should be. And I think you'll do the same thing for your son one day.
It's a perfect situation. It's a perfect result when you have a son or a child or a daughter, for that matter. It doesn't matter what they are, son, daughter, who is passionate about one of your passions. And you said just now that, you think it's one of the best sort of subject matters or topics or area hobbies to bond over. I'm then in my mind starting, what would be different? Well, maybe a father-son that start a rock group or like a musical band together. I could see that being a very bonding experience. But aside from that, I don't know what else there is. Besides, I'm sure there's many out there. We're just not thinking because we're so focused on cards.
I just went to visit Mitchell in Chicago 2 weeks ago, and we went to a trading card show. I mean, that's one of the things that we do.
Perfect. Yeah. Bobby Burrell is here. Hey, Bobby says, cards and family coming together can't be matched. Well, he tells us right there that there's nothing better too. So, I mean, and Bobby, I don't know if you guys know Bobby Burrell or not, but he's a hockey historian and he's written the vintage hockey card books, a couple of them already. And I don't know if Bobby even has any kids. I apologize, Bobby. I feel like I would know that. But yeah, I mean, that's what we hope for, right? That's what I'd like to happen and be able. I can't wait to take my kids to Hey, my kids have come to card shows, but they don't know where they are. They're too young. But I definitely look forward to that down the road. So for sure. Bobby said has a 30-year-old son. Very good. Oh, that's cool. Bobby, I didn't think you were old enough to have a 30-year-old son. So that's pretty cool. Mitch, was there anything else that you wanted to chat about tonight in terms of your approach to the hobby, what you're collecting, and anything else about your dad, your brother, anything else? I'm going through my notes and we've covered pretty much everything already, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, for me growing up with him, with this constant mutual bond of sports cards, it definitely made us closer. And I think I'm very grateful that it continues to. I think it's something, hopefully, that I keep with me my whole life. I think I'm very passionate about it. Every single day I'm thinking about sports cards, it's kind of an interesting shift because growing up I felt like my dad knew everything about sports cards, and now I'm telling him about all the the hobby stuff, and he can't believe it. So it feels like the roles have reversed. But I get just as much pleasure. We have a running joke because I used to, every time I buy a card, he'd be like, Mitchell, I want to know all the cards you're getting. So every time I buy a card now, I send him a picture of it. And there was for a while, he would just say nice. And because he didn't know what else to say when I'd send him a card, but it could be some insane card. I remember in particular, when I bought this card, he said nice. I'm like, well, now I don't even want it.
But that one you need for your set because that's part of your set.
No, this is my favorite card I've bought in the last year for the set for sure. But so I told him, I'm like, you just say nice every time, and then now every time I send him a card, he'll send me this Shakespearean monologue about how happy he is that I bought this card. And I run a Discord server, shout out to Hockey House, and I'll send the screenshots of his replies to my random card pickups, and everyone gets a big laugh out of it. So it's just something where I did take a little break from collecting cards when I was in college. I spent too much money on opening boxes, and then I had no money, and then I was like, all right, I need to stop doing this because this is I clearly am going overboard. And then so that was probably 2015. I just realized or 2016. I remember I was trying to get McDavid cards. So I just sold most of my good cards that I had by myself, which I get sick to my stomach thinking back on how much I sold these cards for. I had a McDavid Flair rookie out of 50 that I sold for $200, and it just thinking about that card, I don't know what it's worth today, but or even I don't know, it's just so many.
We all have those cards we sold too early. That's for sure. I want to show you. This is my copy of that Gordie Howe card. I don't have it in hand, but that's I actually like yours better. Yours has those additional breaks, but just a
I actually, I don't know if you saw, I actually got this on Hobby Insider. So if I didn't sign up for Hobby Insider a couple months ago, I would not have had this card.
Oh, very cool. Very good. And that was one you needed for your set. So that's awesome.
I'm almost done. Cool. I need 13 more cards. It's a gigantic set. There's 91 cards in it. So I'm getting close.
I was working on that on this set at one point. I was working on it too. I had the checklist and I was like, oh my God, this thing's going to take forever. And then I sold off everything except for the Gretzky, the Howe, and the Lemieux. Those are the three. I never had the Crosby or the Ovechkin, so I would have kept those ones too.
Yeah, so I have all those, luckily. So all the cards I need now are just random cards where I don't understand why I'm not finding them.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm going to go to a couple comments here. We're going to wrap this up, I think, pretty soon. But in the meantime, while I'm going through comments, Al, Mitch, think about anything else you want to talk about because I'm happy to keep going. But in the meantime, Josh here, welcome to the show, says promos were still huge when I was getting into the hobby in 1999 and for years following. 1999 SP signature rookie packs, which were given to distributors to give out, were huge. Tim Couch, etc. And national convention cards numbered to 5, which were parallels from 99 to 2004 or so, still years after that, but they were huge. but they were huge still even into the early 2000s. Yeah, I mean, Josh, I believe you, but I don't remember them being huge in the circles I was traveling in at those times. But in any event, it's good to hear that it's interesting to hear that they were. Mark Santucci likes your Gordy, Mitch, and wants to know if you and or your father are going to the National in Atlantic City next month.
So I contemplated it, but we decided to conserve our efforts and instead go to the Fall Expo.
Okay. I think it's cool that you're going to go to the Fall Expo in Toronto versus the National, because it's not as big of a show, but hockey's better. I know. I agree. I can't wait to meet both of you there. Make sure you find me at the show. I'll have a booth. I'll be set up in November. I look forward to shaking your hands and meeting you guys in person. And we'll miss you at the National, though. It would have been great to see you there. But Chicago next year, hopefully. Well, that's going to be in your backyard, so you'll be there for sure.
We'll be there.
For sure. Yeah, right on. And Wayne says, I remember Sergei Fedorov Upper Deck French. Oh my God, I remember it being $300, Wayne, that card. Totally. Yes, those packs were. Hey, Al, what do you know about Upper Deck French? And just listen, I think it's not a secret anymore. It came out in a book called Card Sharks about what happened with Upper Deck French. But I mean, I remember it came out, it was $25 a pack. I was selling it in my shop for $25 a pack. And then all of a sudden they went back to the printing press and it was no longer scarce at all. Do you have any insights to add to that?
I do recall there was a gentleman named Brian Burr who was the president of Upper Deck. And he invited me out to their office for a day because he wanted to pick my brain about making some new products. And one of the things that we talked about was French version of different products, including the hockey. And he actually said the same. He's like, we shouldn't have gone back and made more. It was such a high demand product. Then they just flooded the market with it. But then I also learned, going back to our previous stories, I did learn that they made the Dale Murphy reverse error, the reverse negative error. They made extra sheets just of that card.
Yeah,
that they had more available because it was $125 or something at the time. So they actually made just sheets of that card.
Well,
I know there was a Sheffield error and the Dale Murphy, and they were making just all the one card on the whole sheet. So
that triggers something else in my mind, which is the Ken Griffey Jr. card, the number 1 card in the '89 Upper Deck. That was obviously no shortage of copies printed of that, but I have heard rumors, and I wonder if you can confirm that card was then also printed just sheets and sheets of that card alone to get more and more into the marketplace. Do you have any?
I never heard about Griffey. I heard about the other guy, but not Griffey. But it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Now that we hear that about the Dale Murphy, definitely not outside the realm of possibility that they might have done that with the Griffey too. Not saying they did. I've just heard rumors and thought maybe. Well, here Mike Zier says sheets of Griffey too. Okay, but do you have evidence, Mike? Did you see it with your own 2 eyes, or are you just saying what you heard someone else say? And I just say that because it's easy to just make comments, but rumors aren't always necessarily true. They do take on lives of their own at times. So I wonder, but hey, I've heard the same rumors that Mike Zier has heard. And I just wonder if, Mike, you have additional evidence that I don't have or that I've never.
And Mitchell, there is one Jaromir Jagr rookie card that's worth something. The one that has the Upper Deck baseball logo on the back. Instead of the hockey, they put baseball on error cards. I don't know if that was on purpose, but they do have them. And so that would be a valuable Jagr plain rookie card.
Interesting.
I don't even what do you know what that's worth? I'm not even aware.
1989-90 Jaromir Jagr rookie, and they made some in the first print run apparently that had the Upper Deck baseball logo rather than the Upper Deck hockey logo for the hologram on the back, the little tiny hologram on the back.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one either.
Okay.
And Mike Zier says, ask Tom G. Give me a last name. What does G stand for? And I'll maybe I'll reach out because I don't know who Tom G is unless it's escaping me, Mike. But feel free to DM me too on Twitter or Instagram. Happy to further that discussion and appreciate you jumping in any event. Baseball Card Curmudgeon says it's common hobby lore. I think even mentioned in Card Sharks that 89 Griffies were overprinted and also backdoored. I think the whole thing was over. Yeah, again, it just comes back. My only question is, were there sheets made of just the Griffey? If anyone can verify that, that's what I'm asking about. But in any event, Guys, this has been an absolute pleasure to have you. But I want to give you the opportunity to bring up any other topics before I feel like we might be done. But if there's anything else, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind,
you got cards to show.
Yeah, people have been DMing me asking me to show off some cards.
Show cards.
Yeah, so this was kind of a meme, but people really want me to show it. So this is I don't know if you're familiar. This is a Danny Heatley Cup All-Star Royalty card. It's actually numbered out of 2. So I don't know if you're aware of like this very famous hockey meme of Danny Heatley, where he had 50 goals in 2007, and they made this video where Danny Heatley, it's like a fake like Danny Heatley commenting over it, like 50 in 07, I'm a effing all-star. Like it is like one of the biggest like memes in hockey. So I figured this card, if any card ever made by Upper Deck encapsulates that meme, it's this card. There's only 2 of them. He's wearing the 2007 All-Star Game jersey. So this is the year that he had the 50 goals. I saw this card. I was like, I have to have this card because like people my age, like we go crazy about like when we say 1507. Like there's like hilarious like Twitter accounts that are like parodies of Danny Heatley. So I had to have this card. So I had to show that off. All right, I showed these off. I want to show also this set. I think is like really undervalued, or maybe not undervalued, but underappreciated. The 0506 Ultimate Jumbo patches at a 35. This is my favorite like just patch set. So I have Leo Ovechkin, which is the rookie year.
Beautiful. I love those, by the way.
Yeah. So this is like I saw this. This was on eBay for months for like $300, and then eventually I bought this in 2020 for $300. I don't know how it lasted. So I had someone offer me $4,000 for it. Very recently. So
offer you how much?
$4,000.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I'm not an investor. I buy cards and then I never get rid of them. I just like what I like. That's but this card is like, I don't know how it was available for so long. And then I got the Patrick Waugh recently. And then I actually just got this week, the other patch set of Patrick Waugh. This is Jeremy, this is sold for $45 at auction. Like to me, that's insane.
It's a steal.
And then I wanted to show this card off. I'm not as low on Panini cards as a lot of people. This is the Prime Signatures 101 of Ovechkin. This is another card I just like sold, I think like very cheaply at auction. It was like $400. So I just see cards like that, and I'm like, I see cards that don't make sense that are very cool and scarce. I'm like, I have to buy. Like, a lot of the cards I have are just cards that I bid on that I didn't expect to win, and then people just didn't bid on it, and then I won it. Another card like that. This one right here, Evgeny Malkin, top 10 picks, Cup 101. This is a very cheap card, but I think it's a beautiful set. Mm-hmm. A lot of them, they're like hand numbered. I don't like the marker numbering. I don't know if you
I have a few cards that have hand numbering because you have no other option. But yeah, I much prefer stamped numbering versus numbering. Yeah.
I wanted to show this card off. I love Mike Bossy. I think before Ovechkin, he's undoubtedly the greatest goal scorer ever. So I had this card come into my collection recently, the 101 0708 the Cup. Patch autograph. Don't care that it's the one color. I know it's not fake, and this is the only one, so there's not a better one.
Great card.
From the same set, this is a triple patch Gretzky, Lemieux, and Messier, all multicolor. I haven't seen another one where all of them are multicolored. I've seen a few where like 2 of them are nice and there's like one color. So I saw this one. It was like a really bad listing, and it was from Slovakia. You had like 15 feedback. I don't really mind like the bad listings, because if it's not good, I can get my money back eventually, and if it's good, then I get a deal. So I don't agree with the philosophy to like avoid those eBay listings, because you can always get your money back if it doesn't, if it's not up to snuff.
Yeah.
And then just a couple limited logos I feel like I have to show off after Les's episode. I don't have any like his, but I have this as one of my favorites, Mike Bossy. I got this from a private collection recently. The guy had like maybe 150 limited logos, and no one had seen them in years. So I got this one off of him. This is, to me, this is a crazy card. I mean, obviously you can't sign anymore. That's, I think, one of his best ones. And then this was a short.
Passed away recently.
Yeah. This was a short print, but the patch is ridiculous.
Yeah. That's a great set. There were so many people collecting that set of limited logos. I'm aware of a gentleman right now who's chasing down that set. And he didn't start that long ago. So that's the 09 set, and that's the only vertical limited logo set, I believe.
Yeah. So I have like a whole stack of those. I just came out of focus.
It's okay. It'll come back.
Yeah. I love that set. I have no intention of ever building it because like Guy Lafleur is at a 3, and I'll never have one.
Gretzky's at a 5.
Yeah. So, but I love picking them up when I can. So like, I'm gonna try to get all the goalies. I figure that's like a realistic set. So I made a post the other day that I called the goalie trinity. This is like Watt, Hasek, and Brodeur, because all three of them have like very legitimate cases as the greatest goaltender. I actually made a poll on my Instagram, like who's the greatest goaltender. None of them had more than 40% of the vote, so it's still
I voted for Hasek.
I also believe Hasek is the GOAT, but I respect
both others.
I won't argue if you think it's Watt or Brodeur. So I love those cards. What else do I have? This is, I know this is not the most valuable card, but it's the only dual patch autograph of these two. And nice. It's out of 15. I feel like this is the kind of card, if they make another run, like this is the kind of card that people will really chase after, assuming they don't make more of these. But I don't think they will, because they haven't yet for whatever reason. So I got that card for like $100. Like, it's crazy to me.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for that. Is that a Lemieux honorable numbers there?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even get to. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Just we have to respect how I spotted that over there. I knew exactly what it was. That was Bayal. Was that good or what?
That was good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very impressive.
Mitchell, why don't you show the Peter Stastny card, the rarest of our set?
Okay, yeah, sure.
There's only 3 of them in the world.
Actually, wait, I want to show something else that ties back to the Shaquille O'Neal thing, because that's kind of how my dad's business is.
You have the rarest, Mitchell, you have the rarest Shaquille O'Neal autographed jersey, too.
While he's grabbing that, I'm going to quickly some comments here. Mike, sounds good. DM me. Colin Murray says, from Jack of all trades, Griffey #1 sheets. Yes, Mark. Yes, Danny Heatley was with Ottawa. Al has a question. Al, I'm going to get you to just DM Mitch, and he'll pass that question along to his father, if you don't mind. Rich, Ultimate Collection, the best. Yes. Bobby Burrell says, sadly, people swear to me all the time. They swear they've seen a full case of 60s hockey, or they swear the Griffey sheet. Only pictures can stop the swearing. Right. I've never seen. Let's see a picture of these things. Exactly. Mark Santucci, I like Patrick Waugh in a Montreal jersey. Yeah, that's his chose. If I can get Patrick Waugh in Montreal over Colorado, I definitely would. Mark Santucci makes the error in saying that Ken Dryden is the greatest goalie, and I know it's that. I'm just kidding with you. And Hockey Barn says Sawchuk is the goalie GOAT. I mean, there's arguments for all these guys, no doubt about it. And I'm just bugging you on the Dryden there, Mark Santucci. Okay, go ahead, Mitch.
All right, so Shaq was at my dad's office, and he signed jerseys both of them for his rookie season. So this one's for my dad, it just says to Al.
Awesome.
And then, but the one that he gave his business partner, I actually don't know why he wrote this. Now that I think about it, but it says to Rod
signature.
F.U. Shaquille O'Neal.
Hilarious. And did you pull out that Stastny card?
Well, I looked for it, and it's like they're just like
okay.
It would take forever to pull it out.
No problem. Well, it's the rarest of the 0506 signature patches from the Cup, and the one that isn't even on the checklist. But good that you found it. And okay, guys. Well, with that, Al, any final words from you?
No, I just, you know what, just a thought. It's a separate thought, but I tried to collect all the Rick Nash cards from that set at one time. They only made 40 because it was a short print. I think we got up to like 8 or 9, but then we stopped. But we were trying to get all 40 of them, but I don't know why I thought of that.
That's tough to do. Bobby Burrell says goalie goats have to be divided up by eras, the only fair way. 100% agree with that comment. I think it also applies to non-goalies, but it's hey.
George Hainsworth is better than whoever, right?
Right, sure, yeah. You can't compare these things. It's like it's impossible with the way everything has evolved. That's a whole other discussion. Al, Mitch Gropman, guys, it's been a pleasure to have you. It's I don't know, this might be the first father-son duo I've ever had on the show, and that you're both involved in the hobby, and you know that you're still involved, Al. And Mitch, you're like an up-and-comer to a degree, even though you've been around for so long in the hobby. Just based on your age, you're in your mid-20s, I believe. So you got a long road ahead of you to continue in the hobby, and the hobby's better to have you in it. So Mark Santucci likes your classic Winnipeg jersey, as do I. We have a vote for Tretiak. We have a vote for George Vezina, which makes a lot of sense considering the trophy's named after him that goes out to the most valuable goalie every year. But guys, this was a lot of fun. I thank you both for joining, and I guess that's it. We're going to end the episode. So. With that, thanks again. Hang tight right there while I end this. And to the chat, everybody, thanks for your engagement. Thanks everybody for coming out tonight for both episodes. Again, tomorrow on Collectible Live on this channel, our guest will be Reza Arian, also known as Black Mamba Exquisite on Instagram, and he's got a lot of interesting stories too. So looking forward to that tomorrow at 7:00 Eastern. But gentlemen, thanks again, everybody else. See you tomorrow, and if not, we'll see you next week. Have a great week ahead.
Thanks for having us.